Conversation with Ron MacLean.
Welcome to In Conversation. Hope you had a lovely weekend. The start of summer, National Indigenous Peoples Day, Father's Day, so lots going on. Today is a very special show. Bob Dawson was the first Black intercollegiate hockey player to play in the Maritimes. He made the lineup in 1967 with St. Mary's University. His guest with him today is kind of a neat story. It's Lewin Hodges, who is a community engagement specialist for Rogers Television. But really, the fact that Lewin's on stems from an article, a letter he wrote to me. He just said, look, Ron, you're speaking to many celebrities, and that's all well and good, but maybe you'd like to hear about my experiences in the GTHL and minor hockey and how I'm thinking, based on my own story, about whether or not to put my son into hockey. And that was good enough for me, and I think he'll really enjoy it. In fact, Lewin said, I wonder how many great Black hockey players the NHL's missed out on because of racism, and Herb Carnegie is certainly one. This is the story of Herb with his daughter Bernice, and Kwame Mason, who's been on our show, is in the book. Bob Dawson, who's on the show today, is in the book. The foreword is written by Jean Beliveau. Herb in 13 Sports Hall of Fames, but not in the NHL, of course. And then you get to Bob Dawson himself. 1967, he makes the St. Mary's Huskies. And that sounds great, but when you think about it, that's a long time before somebody does something of significance in Atlantic Canada, because it's kind of the birthplace of the Black hockey story in our country. This is a great book by the Fosties, Black Ice, and it details the story of the Colored Hockey League, it was called, from 1895 to 1925, a roaring hockey league of Black African hockey players, Canadian hockey players. So that's, 1967 for Bob. He makes it. Within 3 years, he's part of an all-Black line. Darren Maxwell and Percy Paris, the three play together at Mount Allison University on behalf of St. Mary's, 1970. Real breakthrough. I mean, you think about the new Hockey Diversity Alliance. Evander Kane's dad, Perry, played in Cole Harbour, played his junior hockey in Cole Harbour. It's a great tradition there. And Bob, his life's work, both with the government and as a writer, he has done a number of articles. I'll give you just an example. This is a box score. He does great items on this subject. It's like his entire life has prepared him for this very moment. So it's an honor to welcome, to share his wisdom today.
You guys know about the history of Black players in hockey, or the Black hockey leagues?
Hockey league?
Yeah, anything like that.
Never heard of a league.
In terms of the style of play in that league, they pioneered the slap shot. For me, the capturing of stories and the sharing of stories is important, not only for the present generation, but for generations to come.
Here's Bob and Lewin. Gentlemen, thanks so much. Bob, I'll start with you. This is your life's work. I was saying in the preamble, everything kind of points to you being a person with whom we would want to have a conversation right now. So tell the viewer a little bit about your story.
Well, I was born in Nova Scotia. In growing up, I lived in Dartmouth, which crossed the harbor from Halifax. I've over the years took an interest in sports and excelled in baseball, basketball, and hockey. And in terms of the hockey, it became an eventual passion with me, to the extent that I got involved in minor hockey, went on to play high school hockey, and then ended up going to St. Mary's University in 1967 and played in the Atlantic Intercollegiate Hockey League. And as it happened, I was the first and only Black to play in that league at the time. And it was quite an experience, and something that perhaps would take another segment to sort of talk about. But later on, in about 1969, Darryl Maxwell from Truro, Nova Scotia, who's the brother of Stan Chook Maxwell, a heck of a hockey player. And then eventually in 1970, Percy Paris from Windsor, Nova Scotia, whose brother, by the way, John Paris Jr., was the first Black in professional hockey to coach and also to be a general manager. And so as it happened, I guess maybe following in the footsteps of the Carnegies and Manny McIntyre in 1970, we were playing in a game, in Mount Allison, Sackville, New Brunswick, against Mount Allison Mounties, and sitting on the bench, and I'm a defenseman. Daryl and Percy are forwards, and so during the course of the game, Bob Boucher looks down the bench and says, "Bob, Daryl, and Percy, I want you to go out on the forward line." And we looked bewildered at one another, and he said, "Come on, I want you to go out." So we went out and I guess made a little bit of hockey history in that we were the first and only black line in all of Canadian University hockey history. And following, I had some aspirations of pursuing hockey further, and as it happened, Lowell McDonald, who was sort of a star player with the Pittsburgh Penguins, had attended St. Mary's, and Boucher tried to get him onto the team to play in the league, but unfortunately, the league had put into place sort of a clause with respect to the use of professional players. But in any event, he followed the team, the practices, and the games. And Lowell, unbeknownst to me, said to many others that that I had the talent to play in the NHL. And one has to remember at that time, Willie O'Ree in '67 had his career was abruptly ended, and consequently from '67, from '61 rather to '74, there seemed to be an unofficial policy against blacks playing in the NHL. So okay, I sort of looked at that and felt that I would not take that route. Although there were many fine black hockey players out of Nova Scotia, like Stan Chick Maxwell, John Mintus, as well as Clobie Collins, and also Frankie Danky Dorrington. These were all top-notch black hockey players and highly talented that were playing in semi-pro leagues in Canada and also in the US. But in any event, I put aside my thoughts of pursuing a hockey career, and eventually I left St. Mary's, went to Dal, did my master's in social work, and an opportunity presented itself. And I was recruited to by the Director General of the Federal Public Service Commission to head up a program and manage that program in terms of the implementation of strategies to improve the representation of blacks in federal departments in Nova Scotia. And I did that for a number of years, and then eventually went on, moved to Ottawa, where I've been here for over 40 years. Had served in the Federal Public Service for 37 years in the area of human resources management. Within that field, I had worked in the areas of equity, diversity, training and development, recruitment, and staffing. And finally, I retired. It's been 10 years now, but all along the way, I've been involved in the community here, and have served on boards of directors for different community organizations, the National Capital Alliance on Race Relations. I also was a member of the Ottawa Carleton Race Relations Advisory Committee, Race Relations Advisory Committee, and things of that nature. And I guess because of my concern about what I had gone through with respect to hockey, I sort of became very interested in trying to advance the cause, and with a view to shining the light on a game that I loved, but also had some shortcomings, specifically as it related to racism and blacks. So I've been, Don, as you know, advocating for a number of years in terms of hockey addressing this issue, which has prevented and is systematic, has prevented so many black individuals from embracing the sport. And it continues.
And Lewin, that was your question to me is, Ron, how many NHL players were overlooked because of race? But tell the viewer your story. It's fascinating. Go ahead.
Thanks, Ron. My story is kind of similar, but a little different. I didn't make it as far as collegiate hockey, but my parents came here in the 60s. My family moved here in the 60s from Jamaica, and they embraced hockey. That's what Canada was. It was hockey, and everybody became, growing up in Toronto, everybody became a Leaf fan. But there was that one uncle. He had to be a Habs fan. He just didn't want to go along with everybody else. And I remember as a kid, every Saturday night it was hockey. It was hockey. I was embedded into it, and that was the first love of sport I had. And I played floor hockey at school. Hockey, people would call you, go down the street, you play hockey every day. And when I started playing in leagues and ice hockey, you wondered, it was a little different. It felt different at the beginning, and then my father wouldn't say things, and then after a while he started saying things, and I remember probably from year 2, I think it was Pee Wee hockey, I think, and you would start to hear the comments of "you people," and it was always this: you can't play this game. You can't. We were always separated. The N word was used a lot. They didn't want to. We had weak ankles. You have weak ankles. You can't play. You're not supposed. You should play basketball, and you can't do this. You can't do that. My first year, I was not good. I really was not good. My second year, for some reason, skating came to me, and I got most valuable player of the year that year, and it just escalated and kept going forward and playing on different teams. But when you start to play more AA, AAA hockey, and you start to travel around, you leave the GTA area and you start to go on the outskirts, you start to come across different things, and different racial slurs that you're hearing from everywhere that you're out there. But I personally never had a banana thrown on the ice, but I've had the slurs consistently come. My mother, eventually, I know the game got rough for her, but she didn't want to come to every game and listen to her son being called that. There was even a player on my team for years. We played on the same team for years. We would drive him to hockey. My dad would pick him up, bring him to a game. When there was a game when he got kicked out of the game, and the coaches threw my dad the key and said, "Hey, Jack, go open the dressing room." And my father went and opened the dressing room and asked the player, "Why'd you get kicked out?" Wouldn't tell him. I think we even drove him home that night. Still wouldn't say anything. No one knew why, and then we found out afterwards he used the N-word against someone on the other team. We're on the same team. We're playing together, and this has happened. So, Bob, when you talk about, you got in St. Mary's, you had that line, and you guys went out, and we had the similar thing, and we played in a tournament in Cornwall, and 3 of us started forwards. I moved up from defense, and we started on the forward line, and that didn't go over too well because we were very good skaters. We were fast. I had the size, and we were tough. And we went out there and we played that team hard. And the fans, the parents, the town did not like that. And I remember there being an OPP car had to park at our hotel that evening because it got that bad. Yeah. So you start to feel these things. And what bothers me moving forward now, going through playing hockey, I didn't make it to the collegiate level, but after a while, my cousin, who was a great player, he played a lot of AAA hockey, with Bruce Dawson. He's passed away. He was a great player, and he told me, I remember I was 12, 13 years old, and he said, eventually, they're just going to stop looking at you. You're not going to have that opportunity. And I didn't want to believe that. And then I started realizing, you'd go to a tournament, score 2 goals, have 4 assists. You didn't get recognized as player of the tournament. The guy who has 1 goal got the player of the tournament. And then you go through the career, and then you say, okay, well, hockey's done, but I'm still going to play. I'm going to play beer league hockey, men's league hockey, things like that, because it's older now. We're all past that. but I would go into beer league hockey and I'd hear the same thing. These are grown people,
Oh yes.
and you're
Yeah.
hearing the same language. I was even called, it was all due respect, I was called racial slurs by referees. And when I would go to the convener, I remember I played at a place at Jane and Highway 7, and the referee decided to use a term towards me, which I didn't like. And then when I complained to the convener, he just said, that didn't happen, deal with it. But it didn't happen, and we're not. And I refused to set foot back in that building, and I never have. And I
Yeah.
walked off. And what disappoints me is a lot of these slurs, a lot of these things that happen, it happens on the ice, but a lot of it happens off the ice, and it's coming from the stands.
Oh yes. Now.
That's coming
More so
from the
now.
stands.
Yeah.
Yeah, and what has to happen is the people in the stands, i.e. parents, are the ones that need to educate the children. Because a banana doesn't get thrown on the ice from a player. A banana is getting thrown on the ice from someone in the stands. And if we're not teaching the kids at this stage that you can't do that, then there's something wrong there. Because again, if I'm playing in a men's league and
Yeah.
the men are calling me, are still using racial slurs, they're going and taking their kids out to hockey. Those same people are taking their their kids to hockey. So what are they teaching their kids? You can't. To me, I think it's horrible. So moving forward in my career, I mean, I decided that last year, a lot of injuries and ailments. I played with a group of guys. A buddy, I live out in Whitby now, and a buddy asked me to come play, just pick up hockey, and I enjoyed it. I love hockey, and it was years, and I went back and played, but the passion was gone. The
Yeah.
passion was gone. And I really tried with my son as well. Like my son, and now he's 10 years old. I tried to get him into hockey, and he said he's not interested because he doesn't feel like there's anyone that relates to him. He'd rather play baseball or basketball and things like that because he sees that the kids around him. And right now he says, he's like, but there's no one that looks like me. I'll skate, but I don't want to play. And when he said that, and everybody who knew me knew if I had a child, they'd probably be in hockey. And when he told me that, I kind of agreed. I wasn't forcing him. And at that point, I said, you know what? I don't want you to go through the same things that I went through. And it was a lot. And I also have to say that even though there's having team sports and hockey, you made a lot of great friends. I had a captain who called me up last week. His name is Kevin Devine. He captained one of my team. He called me up after all this to ask me how I was feeling, because he remembered what we went through back then. And he just wanted to, just to reach out and say, hey, Luke, what's going on? How you doing? I remember you guys went through a lot, but I'm still there for you, got your back. We haven't talked in over 20 something years.
Yeah.
But he found the time to reach out and do that. And that says a lot as a person. So moving forward, I still love the game of hockey. Do I want to put my son in it? No, I'm not feeling that yet, because we still we still haven't moved forward. There's still a lot of education, and I think a lot of the education starts at home with the parents.
Very definitely, very definitely. And I couldn't agree with you, anymore. Because the kids, in sort of growing up and in creating that identity and personality, it begins in the home. Then as they get older, their peer groups, and when they get involved in sports and other extracurricular activities, they bring those attitudes with them, and they get manifested in different ways. Sort of the racial slurs, the derogatory comments, the alienation of people who look different, and they grow older, and those same attitudes and behaviors become ingrained, and they continue. And the mindsets, unless there's a great awakening, the mindsets don't change. But I think in order for that change to occur, there has to be sort of a reaching out to learn about other cultures and people who are different, and to inform themselves and to educate themselves to the point where they're able to realize that, hey, what I said is not right, and to sort of be aware of the sensitivities and have that type of the sensitivities and also the empathy of what it's like to walk in that individual's shoes. Yeah, there's
Totally agree.
yeah,
And it's like you said, Bob. It's the empathy and understanding what it's like to walk in that person's shoes, and not being there to understand. And you, the teammates, like I said, you have teammates, but people also in that way have to jump in. If your teammate says something, you got to let that teammate know that's not right. If you're a parent
sure.
in the stand and you hear another parent say something, you got to go over and let them know that's not right. Long gone are the days, should be, it's 2020, long gone, should be long gone are the days where people sit back and say, well, that doesn't really involve me. It involves us all now. And this is why we're having these conversations now, because we all realize we need to move forward. You know, we're Canadians, we love this game, and it's in all aspects. We need to move forward. And the education, I think, starts at home. It's, yeah, we can teach the kids all they want, but the education has to start at home.
Did you see Bernie Saunders played for the Quebec Nordiques organization, ultimately played in the American Hockey League, never made the Nordiques much, but he had the same experience. He had a black teammate who was using improper language about a black player on the other team, and he was shocked that he thought that was acceptable. He didn't understand.
Yeah.
Bob, so you just met with Courtney Cito. We've spoken about the great paper you produced a year ago, a panel discussion that was held at Queen's University, led to a paper on racism and anti-racism, more specifically. You just, with Courtney, got together with the senior advisors, Adam Vancouver, a member of Parliament, and Raphael Jacobi Harris, both advisors to the Heritage Minister, the Honorable Stephen Guilbeault. So tell me about this. Is stuff that you're doing to try and move us forward. Tell the viewer that.
Yes, we met on June the 11th with both Adam and Raphael. And really, it was, as you had pointed out, to discuss the policy paper, because in that policy paper, the Ministry of Canadian Heritage is implicated in terms of their overall responsibility for sport in Canada. They set the policies, the regulations, and more importantly, they provide funding to national sport organizations to run their programs and provide for their different services. So knowing this and knowing the fact that they have what is called a funding and accountability framework, so that national organizations applying to them for funding have to meet certain eligibility criteria. And then you have the accountability framework, which is there to sort of monitor. And we learned through and we felt that they were very key in what we were trying to do. And so during the course of the conversation, things like data collection, as an example, and oversight were two key areas that we felt that we wanted to bring to their attention. And data collection in the sense that they would have a process in place to collect information on participants in hockey, not only in hockey, but in different sports, sort of like an identity-based collection process and a repository of information from the perspective of being able to monitor incidences of racism and to track the kinds of areas of discrimination that were being experienced by individuals, with a view to trying to come up with some proactive strategies and solutions to deal with that. Unfortunately, we found out that they don't have sort of a system in place to collect that kind of data, although upon doing some research, back in 2002, there was 2011 as well, there was a round table on sport and the underrepresentation of designated group members. And the data collection was one piece of that very important recommendation. However, it has slipped through the cracks in terms of Canadian heritage. And Raphael even sort of admitted that that's an area that they need to pay some attention to. And the other aspect, of course, was the oversight piece of holding sporting bodies and organizations accountable for the implementation of policies and programs and other initiatives related to, say, diversity and inclusion and racism, and also the reporting of incidences and the follow-up. So all to say, that was a first initial conversation, and I suspect based on what comes out of the Q&A session on Monday, January 29th, no doubt we already know, based on the kinds of questions that are coming in from people who have registered to participate, we know that going through some of those questions, we need to follow up on with Heritage again to sort of look at and address, trying to address some of these questions, but not only with Canadian Heritage, but also Hockey Canada has a major piece to play in all of this as the the national governing body for hockey. We have made the approach to them in terms of sharing with them the policy paper. We've not heard anything back from them. We don't know whether or not they will actually participate in the Q&A session, which basically is a public forum to look at the policy in terms of the kinds of issues that we have identified, and also the strategies, their suggested strategies that hockey organizations, government bodies might want to look at in terms of addressing identified concerns in terms of their areas of responsibility.
Bob, what's the exact, now this is June 29th, I just want to be clear, it's June 29th,
Yes,
a
Monday.
week to date that the meeting is taking place, that
That's
you
correct.
love Hockey Canada to eavesdrop and perhaps
Yeah.
contribute. What is it called exactly? Do you have it in front of you? If not, I'll
It's
put it on at the end.
it's basically,
For the viewer to find it would be good. So Lewin, as you hear that, what Bob's talking about is, he's trying to work with Canadian Heritage, which in and of itself is interesting because it's not a sports portfolio anymore. It's kind of divvied up into various elements of heritage. And that might be, I hate to say, but it might be watering down the focus on, as an example, the minister's work is very much with respect to climate change, got him elected. So he's in all these different arenas and maybe not in specifically concern for the sport arena. And the other thing, Bob's point is, Hockey Canada, like all the organizations, gets funding based on making sports safe, making the environment for which the sport is held safe. And then you have, beyond Hockey Canada, all the territorial and provincial bodies. Then you have the regional municipal bodies. Yeah. It's a crazy thing to navigate. So we're getting a little bit tight for time, but when you heard all that, Bob, or Lewin, is there anything that sort of struck you with respect to, accountability for hockey?
What comes to mind is I remember Wayne Gretzky's last Olympic game, and I remember Canada went into the shootout, but Wayne wasn't picked to go onto the ice, and Wayne Gretzky sat on the bench. And I remember Canada lost that game, and there was a shot of Wayne sitting on the bench by himself, looking back and forth. And I remember the commentator saying, "We have to change the culture of hockey in Canada. We have to start at the grassroots and really get us back to the top." Because right then we felt that we weren't there anymore. And we spent so much time and energy in starting at the grassroots and building it up, and we won the gold the next time around. I'd like to see us spend that much time and energy in inclusion and diversity. I think that's what we have to really start doing it, because from someone like myself who loves the game, who's grew up loving this game, just kind of faded off over the years, it tells me that there's some things that we still need to bring back up and get to that, because there's a whole new generation. There's a whole new generation of kids coming up, and they're not seeing that. They're not seeing the equality of inclusion, and I'd like to see moving forward that we really work on that.
Yeah. And if I might mention, Ron, the purpose of that event on June the 29th is to basically advocate for policy changes and to invigorate the need for re-education of coaches, parents, players, and even officials in terms of the importance of anti-racism, but also it's to promote strategies for making the game safer, more inclusive, and welcoming, and also to hold hockey organizations and bodies also accountable for their policies, practices, and so forth. So for us, this is an adventure, and as we're going to move forward as advocates for this policy paper to because all four of us see it as it being important, and we want to engage and involve as many bodies and entities as we can to make hockey, as I said, safer, more inclusive, and more welcoming.
You have the name of the conference, Bob. I registered so long ago, I don't remember specifically the name of it.
It's called Implementing Anti-Racism in Hockey.
There you go.
And it's on Eventbrite rather. And at the moment, I think there's room for 200 people. We have about 150 people that have registered now.
There you go. That's job one for a lot of people in the game. Lewin, I really appreciate you reaching out. This is just the tip of the iceberg. We have so much more you and Bob and all of us will do together. So, Bob, my eternal gratitude forever for what you do for the game and particularly this notion. So, thank you both.
Thank you for giving us the forum to talk about this important issue.
Big thank you to both men. We're back on Wednesday, 7 o'clock Eastern, 4 Pacific, with Mark Tewksbury and Shea Smith, the one-time sprinter and now fantastic bobsledder. As always, close with a song lyric today. Tom Petty, his family was in the news this weekend, so I thought it'd be fun to go with, from his band Mudcrutch, actually. I don't scare easy, don't fall apart when I'm under the gun. You break my heart, I ain't gonna run. I don't scare easy for no one. That's Thomas Earl Petty. Thanks for watching today. So long for now.